I was a fresh 21-year-old graduate, armed with a degree in French literature. Born on Teachers' Day, I felt it was my duty to be a teacher. Providence has always been at play with me. I got my first job as a classroom teacher. I was teaching grade 8 to grade 12. As a teacher, what I received on the first day of my school was a roll call sheet, 40 kids in a classroom, about 5 kids with SPCL written against their names. These kids were called special. What made them special? Nobody told us. Nobody in a school bothered to tell a classroom teacher for the first time of her life when she was in this job of being a teacher that what made these kids special. It was left for me to infer. It was left for me to make a conclusion. I, like every other normal teacher, concluded that these kids were special because they were born to trouble me. They were born to torture me. These kids were lazy. What made them special? They looked like me. They looked like every other child in the classroom, yet they were called special. Time passed, I moved jobs. I then moved into a Cambridge school, an international school where a setup called resource room was set. For the first time, this special had a name, learning disability. I remember asking my headmistress, what is this learning disability and why don't these kids go to a special school? Why do we classroom teachers have to deal with them in the first place? What she told me startled me. She told me that these kids could not have been admitted in a special school because their IQ essentially was average or above average. Special schools only catered to kids who had IQ below average, kids who had physiological manifestation of a disability. Our LD kids were not that. Just during that time when I was doing a laugh of our French teacher job in an international school with the works, I was also volunteering at an NGO named Masoom that worked for night schools. I saw people resume education after a certain gap. They struggled for learning. Their struggle was of learning. The founder in that organization was so passionate. She was so passionate about somebody else's problem. Normally, we all have a quest to learn. It was in this organization that I, for the first time, saw that there was somebody else just as passionate about somebody else's learning. I was now standing and looking at the two ends of a spectrum. An international school with all the awareness and infrastructure, one NGO with nothing, problem was the same, people were struggling to learn, learning disability was in the face. Nobody was doing anything about it. This was the time when I had to listen to my Baba. I had to do something about my learning. I had strong faith in the values my parents had given me. Journey started. Question was, an organization for kids with learning disability. Should this be a learning center? Should this be beyond school program? Or should this be within the school? I said this had to be within the school. The question that bothered me at all times, continues to bother me even today as we talk, is how many more years are we going to push our special children into the boundaries of the so-called normal world? How many more years are they going to make candles and lanterns? How many more years are we going to teach them paper cutting? We all gave up eating Farex at some point in time, and we started eating better food because we had to grow. Why is it that special kids are constantly stimulated with this much? Why can't the stimulation be more to ensure that they deliver better? Why is it that we will push them and not the boundaries of the society? Answer to this was inclusion. Answer to this was getting into the system and influencing the system. So with a pack of 14 volunteers, one girl, we started. We got into the Thane Municipal Corporation. We told them we want to do this, and we don't want to do it in a separate space. We want to do it in your school, because the idea was to impact the society and not just the children. We work with about 4,500 children who are at-risk learning disabled, and we don't work with 4,000 children alone. We work with 4,500 families. We work with about 100 teachers. We work with the entire education department of Thane Municipal Corporation. We work with the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, which is known as the biggest education movement that our country has pronounced. Inclusive education is their slogan. They talk about that. And even in 2012, nobody on a premises of a municipal school knew what inclusive education was, what a special educator was meant to do, what a counselor was supposed to do. Nobody knew that. 4.5 years later, our teachers today spot kids who perhaps have at-risk learning disability. They spot the neurological problems that these children have. That has been the growth of this one organization. On another plane, my very first child that I worked with, a dyslexic kid from a very good family, but dyslexic, bullied in the school, troubled by the teachers. I hate to say this, but they're troubled because there is no knowledge, there is no know-how. What is learning disability? Nobody talks about. That child of mine today is studying to be a cardiac surgeon in the United Kingdom. That is the potential of kids with learning disability. 3 years ago, I was doing remediation. It's called remediation, the way we teach our children. I was doing that with a girl, and I was teaching her one word, SAW, S-A-W. And she kept saying, Didi, W-A-S. I was saying S-A-W. She was correct, because that's how she sees it. She reads from right to left. I read from left to right, because my neurology allows me to read from left to right. Hers does not. If she were in a classroom where a teacher did not know this, she would get scolded. She would be thrown out of her classroom saying, can do better, has better potential, or perhaps is just a plain lazy child, need not be in a mainstream school, throw her out of the classroom. But that is the journey of these LD kids. Every time we get a chance to move ahead, we get a chance to take over a school, our agenda is not to work with the kids, but our agenda is to work with the teachers, parents, and potential parents. There is so much that can be done in this space. There is so much that can be done by caregivers. There is so much that can be done by the society. Every time you see a different child in a marriage ceremony, in a gathering, who's jumping up and down, ye bacha hyper hai. The child is hyper. You do not know what the child is battling. Perhaps the child battles a syndrome called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The child doesn't decide to be hyper. What stimulates you, 1, stimulates a disabled child into 7. So a crow sitting in the window, normally we do this to our kids, right? Talk to me, look at me, I'm talking to you. What makes you look outside the window? What makes the child look outside the window is that he has an innate need to respond to the stimulus around him. These children are not bad. These children don't decide to be the way they are. And so sorry the state of affairs is that because it's an invisible disability, you don't see them different. So when I see a child who's slightly different than me, there is an intrinsic sensitivity that stirs in. And I don't expect this child to be normal. I don't expect this child to operate like I do. But when I see a child like me, perfectly fine, and still not working the way I want him to work, I don't want to understand he's disabled. I want to say that the child is badmash. The child is a bad child. The child does not know any better. But the child cannot do any better because that is how he's wired. Learning disability is a neurological problem. To put in common man's words, like Amir Khan has put, the wiring of your brain goes wrong. And there is no way you rewire this brain. There is just no way you rewire this brain. So then what do? You equip the child with skill set, yes, but we also as a society, we are talking about inclusion, inclusive education, and inclusion on all levels. It is time for us as a society to also include these different learners, even if they don't look different. Even if they don't show you physiologically that they are different. It's time that the society pushes its boundaries. We don't need sympathy. They need to be empathized with. Empathy is the space from which we need to operate with these children. Today, if I'm able to reach even a few people, and if we are able to start looking at that hyperactive child as just a child, if you're able to look at that different learner as just a different learner and not a difficult learner, I'd believe that Mimamsa and its reason to exist has been taken care of. We all know that one child. Perhaps all of us have been that, scared of math, numbers make her dance. Every time we are called for interviews and all of that, one common question comes, so what's your story? What led you in this space? Any personal story? Anybody at home? My story is that I was born to a gorgeous set of parents, absolutely normal, in a happy family, got married into an amazing home, amazing partner. My story is that I have a lot of happiness by my side, and I just want to pump that back into the society. Tragedy need not be the mother of social welfare. You need not have gone through something on your own at all times. You can be happy, absolutely content, super satisfied, giving a high five to that universe, saying, woohoo, good job done, I'm so good in my life. and hence I want to create a difference. I want to make a difference. And that is all that I have tried to do through my journey with Mimamsa, with some amazing support from my family, an amazing set of team members. Thank you so much for your patient audience. Thank you very much.